So let's welcome to the programme Frank Allen from The Searchers. Hi there, good morning.
Hi there to you, good to speak to you.
Right now, that's a fantastic sound that brings back so many memories, listening to you again there. And we often do play tracks from you, The Searchers. What's it like now, after all those years? You're sort of celebrating now with a golden tour, I think, aren't you, as well?
Well, I suppose next year is the big year, really, because, although we're not going to do anything particularly special for it, I don't think, but next year will be 50 years since the band became The Searchers. Not the 50th year since the first hit, but in 62, the band that had been Johnny Sandon and The Searchers suddenly turned professional as a four-piece and went over to Hamburg. And that's the lineup that everyone first got to know and love in the middle of 1963. So we count 62 as our 50th anniversary year, but in fact you could count it from 63 if one wanted, or even 54 from Needles and Pins, I suppose.
Right, and things go back to when you've originally been in the Cavern all those years ago, and of course more recently in the new Cavern. I do recall seeing something mentioned about you being there in a recent documentary. Just tell us about your memories of the Cavern, though.
The Cavern was a great place, really atmospheric club. In fact, all the clubs in Liverpool had such a great atmosphere about it because it was a very close-knit community. Yeah, they're very protective about their own identity in Liverpool. I never realised that before I actually met the Searchers. I didn't know anything about Liverpool. I first met them over at the Star Club in Hamburg, which I suppose is the other significant club of the time. And at that time I was one of Cliff Bennett's rebel rousers, and that's where I palled up with the Searchers. And it's also where I learned through copies of Merseybeat and the other Liverpool bands that were on this about all the little musical scene in Liverpool. Of course, I eventually got to play there, first with the Searchers, first with Cliff Bennett and the Rebel Rousers in 63, and of course with the Searchers later on, and even the New Cavern last year. But yeah, the band before I joined them used to play there constantly, in the all-nighter sessions, the lunchtime sessions, the afternoon sessions, and what a wonderful way to get your musical experience. I mean, I'd love to go through all that again now.
And it sounds fascinating that it all took place often at lunchtime. I mean, does that sort of thing really go on nowadays in the same way? It doesn't, does it?
I don't think so. I don't know any place that does lunchtime sessions. No, it's particularly iconic of its time. It's a wonder that people had time to actually do that. I suppose if you got an hour and you're nearby, I suppose it was feasible. Of course, pop music was not as available then as it is now. So you grabbed your chance. There weren't, the big concerts to go to. You couldn't really afford to. Money wasn't very rife in those middle to early 60s years. So it was the local bands and the wannabe musicians, the people who wanted to be stars, that were the people we kind of went to see regularly and became fans of theirs. And Liverpool had its, because of the Merseybeat, which a guy called Bill Harry put out, then they had their own little top 10 local bands. It was the most amazing situation there.
And talking about music generally, the last time you were in the studio with an album was in '89, and I guess you've probably stopped now producing new material, and you're working on the material that you built up over the years, really, when you're performing, aren't you?
Yeah, it would always be nice to make a new album, but at some point you've got to accept that you are a nostalgia act and that your main value is in your back catalogue. So even if you weren't going to make a studio album, the market out there is kind of limited, because really music is, to all intents and purposes, a youth market. Music is as much about selling young bodies to other young bodies as it is about actually selling music. And we are no longer young bodies. We just have a great history and a great sound behind us. If we made a new album, a certain amount of people would buy it. If you could have a freak hit if you made a single. It's always possible, but you have to accept that it's less likely. So the chances of going into the studio and making the album, I would think, are fairly lean. But what we do now when we go around the shows is we have live material. We collect recordings of our live shows and then assemble those into various series of live CDs that kind of like supply the other end of the market. They've all got our old tracks. The live stuff kind of gives them the idea of how we play our stuff now and brings in some new material that we've gathered along the way.
Yeah.
So it's a happy medium, really.
Well, I must say I love listening to live recordings, and it gives you a feel for being in the concert. Now, you're, talking of concerts, appearing very soon in Radlett on the 1st of May.
Yeah, Radlett's a nice place. We've done it a couple of times before. It's not one of our larger venues, but it's really comfortable. And nice thing is about me, it's about half an hour from home, which is fantastic. You don't get too many things right near your home, but Radlett's lovely, and we enjoyed it so much. And anyone who's come to the shows before will know what it's going to be like, because what we do in this current run of concerts is it's more or less like a mini history of the band. We have 2 hours of actual music plus a 20-minute interval, and we go right through our career playing songs from all the various periods. We obviously, our duty is to play all of the hits and a fair selection of the B-sides and album tracks from those very, very early days. And we do pick up some kind of like little niche records that people don't get to hear very often. But we also travel through the later years that we're proud of. At the beginning of the 80s, we made a couple of very, very fine albums for Sire Records, in America, the company that had Madonna and the Ramones and the Flaming Groovies and all people like that. And then carrying on into 89, there's the Hungry Hearts album, which we briefly touched on, and that was trying to bring a bit of new technology into the sound of the Searchers, adding a few synthesizer sounds. And it's amazing the number of people that have actually caught on to our show in the last 15, 20 years. They really, really love the Hungry Hearts album, and so we've got a lot to choose from. And you can never choose everyone, no matter how much we do. There's still things that they want to hear, and they maybe aren't getting in the show. Okay,
and so that's at the Radlett Centre on the 1st of May, then?
Oh, I think that's right. Sunday the 1st of May, and as I say, it's a two-part show. We don't have a support. We go on from cold, we run through, and we chat to the audience as well. I think the main thing about our show that maybe separates us from everyone else is that we communicate right throughout the evening with the audience. I tell them how we came across the songs. I tell them about the instruments we're using. Tell them we're using things about them, incidents that have happened on the road, and generally it's kind of like an evening in the company of friends.
Right. And
I know the audience does.
And finally, I know you've got a website to mention and also a book to mention, because you've got a book yourself, haven't you?
Yeah, well, this is my second book. The first one was Travelling Man about 10 years ago, which was a humorous look at life on the road. The Searchers and Me, which is the current one, it's been out about just under a year now, I think it is the definitive biography of the Searchers, because people kept on at me and they wanted to know all the ins and outs of everything, the recording sessions, how we came to be signed, the early days, the contract clauses, the court cases, the sackings, and I took on the challenge. I spent 4 years researching it and learned all sorts of things that I didn't know, and really covered every aspect. So if someone wants to know about Searchers, or even if they're a mad Anorak fan of that particular decade in general, then this certainly is the book to read, because it's in hardback. It's got 446 pages, I think it is, plus 167 photographs, all of about half a dozen, which I've never used in a book before. So it was a pretty major accomplishment, of which I have to say I'm very proud. And when people get it, they can only get it on the website, by the way. Online from the publishers. So I suppose the best way to get the details is, as you mentioned, our website, which is the-searchers.co.uk. And that'll, anything that this interview hasn't given you about information about the Searchers, you're certainly going to find on that website. It's a pretty stunning one. And I can praise it, because, I write, but I don't organise the whole thing. There's a lady called Wendy Burton who has the hard job of coordinating all that side of things.
Well, thank you very much indeed for joining us on the programme today, and I'm sure it's going to be a brilliant concert on the 1st of May, certainly for the people of Radlett.
It'll be great fun. You really must get along there, and I think we've got you forever, and then you'll be able to check the website, find other dates, and come and see that. And the 60s Gold, which place later on in the year. That's one not to be missed as well.
And my big thanks there to Frank Allen of the Searchers for joining us on the programme today.